In 2012, social media was still relatively new in Nigeria. Facebook had become the place where young people connected, made friends, and built businesses. For 24-year-old Cynthia Osokogu, it was a platform that promised opportunity. A graduate student pursuing her master's degree, Cynthia was smart, ambitious, and optimistic about the future. But on July 22, 2012, that future came to a horrifying end in a Lagos hotel room. This is the story of how a simple business deal turned into one of Nigeria's most shocking murders. A case that exposed the dark side of social media when the internet was still the Wild West. And a crime that would change how an entire nation viewed online friendships. This is the story of Cynthia Osokogu. To understand this case, you need to understand who Cynthia was. Born on November 10, 1987, in Agbo Town, Delta State, Cynthia was the baby of her family and the only daughter among 4 children. Her father was a retired Major General in the Nigerian Army, Frank Osokogu. Her mother was Joyritan Kem Osokogu. Her 3 older brothers included a flight lieutenant, an assistant superintendent of customs, and a businessman living in Greece. This was a disciplined, accomplished military family. Cynthia grew up in that environment, attending Command Children's School in Ilorin and Command Secondary School in Jos. She was smart, driven, and well-educated. After graduating with a degree in English language from Nasarawa State University, Cynthia could have settled into a comfortable government job. Instead, she decided to pursue a master's degree in public administration while also starting her own business. And that's where Facebook came in. Cynthia had an online business selling fashion accessories, clothing, and beauty products. Like many young entrepreneurs in Nigeria at the time, she used Facebook to market her products, connect with customers, and network with potential business partners. In 2012, this was innovative. E-commerce in Nigeria was just beginning, and social media was the frontier. Cynthia was active, friendly, and professional online. She made connections, built relationships, and grew her business. To anyone watching, she was a model of the new Nigerian entrepreneur, educated, tech-savvy, and ambitious. But among her hundreds of Facebook friends were 2 men who had very different intentions. Their names were Okwemo Nobufo Ekozona and Isaac Olisoloka Nonso. We don't know exactly when they first made contact with Cynthia, or what their initial conversations looked like. What we do know is that they presented themselves as legitimate business people. They were interested in what she was selling. They were friendly, trustworthy, professional. Over time, these online conversations became more frequent. Eventually, they proposed a business meeting. A big opportunity. They told Cynthia they wanted to make a substantial purchase, but they needed to meet in person to finalize the details. The location: Lagos. Now, Lagos is Nigeria's commercial capital. If you're doing business in Nigeria, Lagos is where it happens. For someone like Cynthia, who lived in Nasarawa State in north-central Nigeria, a business trip to Lagos made perfect sense. But here's what Cynthia didn't know: Okwemo and Isaac weren't businessmen. They were predators. And they had done this before. See, these 2 had been running a scheme. They would identify targets on social media, usually women from well-off families. They'd build rapport, gain trust, and then lure them to Lagos under the pretense of business. Once they got their victims alone, they would drug them, rob them, and disappear. Sometimes the victims survived. Sometimes they didn't. For Cynthia, they had an additional motive. Through social media stalking, they had figured out that she was the daughter of a retired army general. In their minds, this meant she would be traveling with cash, expensive jewelry, and access to significant money. She was the perfect target. On July 22, 2012, Cynthia made the trip from Nasarawa to Lagos. According to what she told her family, she was meeting business associates about a potential partnership. Her mother later said that Cynthia never carried large sums of cash and didn't even have an ATM card; she used checks. But the men didn't know that. What happened next would shock an entire nation. Okwemo and Isaac had booked a room at Cosmilla Hotel in the Festac area of Lagos. When Cynthia arrived for the meeting, everything seemed legitimate at first. But shortly after she got there, they offered her a drink. The drink was laced with Rohypnol, a powerful sedative. This was their method: knock the victim out, making them helpless. In Nigeria at the time, Rohypnol could be purchased over the counter at pharmacies without a prescription. No questions asked. It was a predator's drug of choice. Within minutes, Cynthia was incapacitated. Unable to move. Unable to scream. Unable to fight back. What followed was brutal. According to evidence later presented in court, Cynthia was tied up with chains. She was robbed of everything she had: her phones, her BlackBerry devices, money, personal items. Then, she was sexually assaulted. But they didn't stop there. Whether it was panic, rage, or cold calculation, the two men made the decision to kill her. They beat her. They strangled her. And when she finally stopped breathing, they left her body in the hotel bathtub and fled. The staff at Cosmilla Hotel would discover Cynthia's body later that evening. The police were called. And that's when a murder investigation unlike any Nigeria had seen before began to unfold. When news broke that the daughter of a retired major general had been murdered in a Lagos hotel, the case immediately gained national attention. The Nigerian police force, under intense public pressure, launched a massive investigation. But here's where the case took a modern twist: the killers had left a digital trail. Investigators traced Cynthia's last communications. They pulled phone records. They analyzed her social media activity. And they discovered that she had been in contact with Okwomo Nobufo Ekozona and his accomplices. Within days, the police had identified their suspects. On August 20, 2012, less than a month after Cynthia's murder, Okwomo was arrested. And this is where things get even more chilling. When confronted, Okwomo confessed. Not just to Cynthia's murder, but to multiple crimes using the same method. Police discovered he had been working with his younger brother, Nonso Isaac, and others. They had a whole operation going. During the investigation, police recovered a video confession where Okwomo admitted to the crime. In the video, he showed investigators how he had tied up Cynthia using chains. He showed them her stolen BlackBerry phones. He described the entire sequence of events with disturbing calmness. The police also arrested Oji Osita, the pharmacist who had sold the Rohypnol to the killers without a prescription. And they arrested several other accomplices, including a driver who had helped them during previous robberies and a man who had acted as a fence, selling the stolen goods. This wasn't just a murder. It was an organized criminal operation that had been running for some time, preying on unsuspecting victims through social media. The trial of Okwomo Nobufo Ekozona and his accomplices was held at the Lagos High Court in Igbose. The Attorney General of Lagos State, Mr. Ode Ipe, personally prosecuted the case. The evidence was overwhelming. The video confession. The phone records. The pharmacy receipts. The testimony from hotel staff. The recovered stolen items. All the accused initially pleaded not guilty. But as the prosecution laid out the evidence piece by piece, the defense crumbled. Justice Olabisi Akinlade presided over the case. And in her courtroom, the full horror of what had happened to Cynthia Osokogu was revealed to the public. The defense tried to argue. They tried to create doubt. But the evidence was damning. The video confession alone was devastating. There was no escaping what they had done. In the end, justice was served. Okwomo Nobufo Ekozona was found guilty of murder and sentenced to death by hanging. His accomplices received various sentences based on their roles in the crime. The pharmacist who sold the Rohypnol without proper authorization was also convicted. For Cynthia's family, it was a bittersweet victory. Their daughter was gone. But at least her killers would face consequences. The murder of Cynthia Osokogu sent shockwaves through Nigeria and beyond. It became one of the first major crimes in the country to highlight the dangers of social media predators. Cynthia's mother, Jorita, spoke to the press after the conviction. Her message was simple but powerful. The youth should be very careful, especially when they are making friends on social media. Like we have seen in the case of my daughter, such friends may have ulterior motives. The case prompted calls for stricter regulations around the sale of drugs like Rohypnol. In Nigeria, as in many African countries at the time, dangerous substances could be purchased without proper oversight. Cynthia's case exposed how predators were using these drugs to commit horrific crimes. It also changed how Nigerians viewed online interactions. Before this case, social media felt mostly safe, a place for opportunity, connection, and growth. After Cynthia's murder, people began to understand that not everyone online was who they claimed to be. The Nigeria police force used the case as a cautionary tale, warning parents to monitor their children's online activity and encouraging young people to be skeptical of strangers they met on the internet. But perhaps most importantly, Cynthia's case became a rallying cry for better law enforcement coordination and victim advocacy. The speed with which the police solved the case and the severity of the sentences sent a message: these crimes would not be tolerated. Cynthia Osokogu should be alive today. She should be 37 years old, maybe with a successful career, maybe with a family of her own. She had dreams. She had potential. She had a future. But that future was stolen by two men who saw her as nothing more than a target. An opportunity. A payday. Her story is a reminder that the internet, for all its promise and connection, can also be a hunting ground for those with evil intentions. It doesn't matter if you're in Nigeria, America, or anywhere else in the world. The danger is real. The predators are real. Since Cynthia's death, Nigeria has continued to grapple with online crimes. But her case remains one of the most significant because it was a wake-up call. It forced the nation to reckon with a new kind of threat and to take online safety seriously. If you're watching this from anywhere in the world, remember Cynthia's story. Be careful who you trust online. Verify before you meet. Tell someone where you're going. Trust your instincts. Because Cynthia Osokogu's story reminds us that sometimes the people we meet online aren't who they claim to be. Rest in peace, Cynthia.